Hello everybody, welcome to Cana Mike's Movie Night on the ECS Network. I'm Mike, and I'm going to apologize in advance for the shaky cam and probably the very poor lighting, but you're only going to see this for this portion of the show. You see, this is a special two-part Cana and Mike Movie Night. You're going to see part one this week, and next Wednesday you'll see part two. We are in Greenwood, South Carolina, and we are at something of a relic of a bygone age, so to speak, but something that they are very proudly keeping up here in Greenwood, and that is a drive-in movie theater, evidenced by, our car behind us. Oh well, she disappeared on me. I was going to get the wife to say hello. Okay, there she is. Say hello, Cana.
Hi, Cana.
She is in the back of the cruiser. They do here at the Auto 25 Drive-In in Greenwood every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think they're here on Sundays. Yes. They do double features. They've got 3 screens. Wonderful thing. You come in and chill out in your own vehicle and, do what, in some cases like myself, you did as a child, go to the drive-in, or maybe something your parents or grandparents told you about. So really cool. And on that screen right over there, I hope I didn't catch the innocent bystanders in that shot. If I did, I'll blur them out. We are going to check out the double feature Star Trek Beyond and Ghostbusters. Now, like I said, 2 parts. So this week we're going to be talking about Star Trek Beyond. Next week we'll be talking about Ghostbusters. When we actually do the talking, we'll be back at home in our makeshift studio. So, a little bit about Star Trek Beyond and my personal love of Star Trek real quick. I have seen every Star Trek movie since Star Trek V opening weekend in the theater. I've never actually seen one at a drive-in, but I do suspect this will count. Star Trek Beyond is the 3rd of the new Kelvinverse / J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. The first one not directed by J.J. Abrams, so that should be pretty cool. And I'm being instructed to back up a little bit, I guess, because I was blocking the driver's side door of the cruiser. But at any rate, this is the 3rd such film. Into Darkness, not one of my favorite Star Trek films. We talked about that last week. Star Trek, the 2009 version, one of my favorite Star Trek films. We talked about that 2 weeks ago. So we're going to see how Star Trek Beyond stacks up. Simon Pegg had a hand in writing this one, and Justin Lin is the director. This is the first sci-fi movie he's ever directed, known primarily for the Fast and the Furious movies before this. So definitely looking forward to checking this one out. It'll be a little bittersweet for me as a Star Trek fan because Anton Yelchin, this is his last motion picture. He played Pavel Chekhov in the previous 2 movies. He was also in Terminator Salvation as Kyle Reese. Had a lot of genre work and a very talented actor who passed away, unfortunately, at home while this movie was in production. So this is his last motion picture, so a little bittersweet there. But I'm sure it's going to be an awesome flick. Definitely looking forward to it. We'll let you know what we think about it in just a moment. So, yes. What?
We do want to let you know, guys, if you are in near the Greenwood area, definitely check out 25drivein.com because that's where we are. We are at the 25 Drive-In in Greenwood.
Yep. You saw something about that and heard me plug it a few minutes ago, but we'll plug it repeatedly because definitely worth checking out. And there'll be a link to their website somewhere in the show notes or on screen below my face as we're talking. So in just a moment, we're going to be back in the studio magically through the magic of YouTube and television. But we'll be talking about Star Trek Beyond. So stick around. Hello everybody and welcome back. Obviously different clothes, obviously different night. We are not at the drive-in in Greenwood, South Carolina anymore. We are at home. We have gotten past our double feature, and the first half of that we are talking about this week, and that is Star Trek Beyond. Now, we find ourselves in a position that we don't typically find ourselves in on this show. This movie's still in theaters. Yeah, there's every possibility you haven't seen it yet.
So there will be spoilers. If you don't want the spoilers, stop now.
Though we will attempt to somewhat keep them to a minimum. But yeah, what she said. If you don't want to get spoiled, then
go away.
Spoilers. I believe in them. Thoroughly. If
Well,
they haven't seen it yet,
now for the record,
stop watching.
For the record, next week we'll be talking about Ghostbusters, and we're going to spoil the hell out of that one because the only thing we're going to be doing there is saving you money. So,
Not the...
you'll have to forgive the Denzi cat for trying to ruin a perfectly good Afghan?
Yes! Very
Okay.
good, baby! Afghan.
By the way, one other thing we want to note before we get too far into this, that is, you will notice probably a difference in video quality between the opening and the second part, and that is because we are testing a new camera. We have a new all-in-one, we're testing the webcam on it, so to see if we can use it for future productions. I have no idea how well this is going to turn out, but as with all things here on the ECS network, work in progress. On the other hand, we got a new microphone that's external hooked up, so while the video quality might suffer a little bit, the sound should be amazing. So, let's talk about Star Trek Beyond, the third of the Kelvin-verse movies, as Trekkies like to call it, the third of the reboots. We'll start with the story briefly, and that is essentially we have an alien race on a far-flung world who is going to attempt to destroy humanity. So, stock plot for a Star Trek movie. The spoiler number one, fast forward a couple minutes if you don't want to get spoiled. Basically, it is Idris Elba as the captain of a long-lost Starfleet vessel that winds up doing this because he was there when Starfleet went to war and sees no real purpose now that he's not a soldier anymore, now that he's not a military captain. But beyond that, it's largely, I hate to say it, the storyline is in this movie for very little purpose whatsoever other than to get us from action scene A to action scene B. I didn't find the story to be overly engrossing. I found it serviceable.
It would have made a great episode.
Yeah, from a storyline standpoint, I agree.
Yeah, it would have made a great 30 to 45 minute episode.
Keeping in mind that Star Trek was an hour-long show, so 45-minute episode.
It could have been a really long commercial night.
Anyway,
I'm just saying.
but with that said, to me the story is not the part of this movie that I would consider the strong suit. I consider the strong suit of this movie to be the acting. The actual way these guys portrayed their characters. Because you get a sense in Star Trek in 2009 that this is the beginning of all of these characters that we know and love. In this movie, they are those characters.
They've been trapped together for 5 years.
Or close to it, yeah.
Yeah. And 5 years trapped with this...
Well, do they actually say...
They say 5 years.
Okay, I thought they were about to embark on the 5-year
I thought they
mission.
were towards the end of the 5 year. Before they go on another 5 year. Anyways,
They were at the end of an extended mission.
They've been on an extended mission. They haven't seen Earth in a very long while. They are now going to stop at this little port, you know.
Yorktown Station, which was a nice little nod, actually.
Okay. I'm not a Trekkie. I have really no
I am.
basis. So I look at these movies as fun entertainment while my hut... No, I know you look at it as entertainment too. But you are kind of a little bit more diehard about this shit.
I am a big Trekkie. I will admit it and not apologize for it.
I'm not saying apologize for it. I just want everyone to know that you have a biased opinion on what you're watching.
I don't know that I have a biased opinion on it.
Into darkness, baby. Into darkness.
I will cite the last episode where we talked about Into Darkness because while I do not believe that is one of the better Star Trek movies ever made, I do give credit where it's due. So,
Anyways.
I'll tell you what, let's go find your favorite author, and then let's have someone write a new series of books based in the same universe, but by a different author, and let them half cut and paste whatever the second book of that series was to make the second book of the new one.
Well, see, that's called plagiarism, baby, and they don't do that shit.
Yet in movies, it happens all the time.
See, this is why you need to be more of a reader than a movie watcher.
If you steal from one source, it's plagiarism. You steal from many, it's research. But the bottom line is, I thought the characters came across much stronger in this movie.
That's because they've been trapped together for so long. They get to, marinate.
Well, no, I think we're missing the point. Because, when I say that is like, Carl Urban in this, he was Bones. Simon Pegg was Scotty. All
primarily
of these
because he wrote the script.
Well, yes, that is Simon Pegg was one of the writers for this movie.
He got a lot of screen time,
and hence Scotty got a lot more to do in this flick than he did Into Darkness.
He had a lot more to do in this flick than he did in the first one.
I don't know. Scotty got a really epic intro in the first movie, and he had a good bit to do there towards the end. But no, in this one, Scotty has...
he is, I mean...
He's the fourth most important character in the movie. Well, no, Simon Pegg, I think, knew enough about Star Trek to know that...
He couldn't be the hero.
Kirk, Spock, McCoy. It's always those three. It's never not going to be those three. And who number 4 is depends on what the story needs. And when you're the guy playing the potential fourth dude, and you're writing the movie, then chances are you're the fourth dude. And so that was Scotty in this movie. But not to the detriment of the film.
Right.
That is one thing we have seen in Star Trek in the past, which is, depending on the director or whatnot, it can be detrimental to the film. Leonard Nimoy directed 2 of the original Star Trek feature films, specifically Search for Spock and Voyage Home. His direction wasn't detrimental to either movie, I didn't think, because Spock really doesn't play a major role in 3. He's not even in it until the end. And at least Nimoy's not. And then 4 was more like a comedy ensemble flick. Shatner directed 5, which had a whole lot of sins to it, and I don't think any of them were helped by Shatner's direction.
He shouldn't be allowed to do shit like that.
He really shouldn't.
And certain of his acting skills shouldn't be allowed either.
I will say this. I've always wanted to see Shatner on stage. Because he's actually a classically trained stage actor.
The only thing I would really want him to see him do would be Shakespeare, because that's really all he's suited for.
Well, that's where his training comes in.
But that's my point.
So.
Literally, he is a one-trick pony.
Well, I don't know.
No! Stop! I have a crochet hook.
Agree.
I have a crochet hook. I will use this hook as defense if I have to. No.
But anyhow, I really did enjoy the acting and the portrayal of the characters in this flick. I thought it was very well done. Visually, this movie is pretty different than its predecessors.
No lens flare!
I will... Because you have... What? Hold on, folks. I don't know if we just died or not. Hopefully not. The
screen goes blank after a while.
Yes, I know that, but while we're recording...
yes, it goes blank when we record.
If you saw me reach forward, folks, I apologize, but the all-in-one screen just went completely dark, and I wanted to make sure we were still recording, but apparently we are.
We are still recording.
I'm not going to edit that out either. We're going to leave that in.
Only if the bubbles start flying will there be a problem.
Okay, well, fair enough. So, visually, the Bridge of the Enterprise, which is the same set, basically. I mean, this time around they haven't committed the sin that the original movies did, which was they destroyed the bridge set after every movie, because they thought every movie was the last one.
Which was fair.
Yeah, well, with this one, it's the same bridge that we've seen in the last 2 movies, but it looks so much different.
It's because of the lens flares. You can actually see it now.
Well, not even that.
No, yeah, I mean, part of it's the lens flare. Now.
Part of it is the lack of lens flare, but the lighting was very different. The first 2 movies, they wanted the Enterprise to look bright and white and new and futuristic.
And hard to see through the lens flare.
Sure, but let's not harp on the lens flare.
I will harp on the fucking lens flare if I feel like it.
Oh, stop. We're not
But
talking
no,
about
but here's the thing. Think of this. This is my theater minor coming out. When you put something that bright and white and then you add a lens flare, it is impossible to see. They did dim the lights, which was nice. But then again, they've been in outer space for a while. They probably were, like, I'm tired of this bright ass light. And then you cut down the lens flares. It does provide a better perspective on what the bridge looks like.
Well, not even just dimming the lights, but they did dim the lights, but they also put different color lights in.
Right.
One of the great things about my favorite, because I've watched everything Star Trek, my favorite look for the bridge of the ship was always the classic movies, because they lit the bridge in such a way that the bridge lit itself. You didn't really see the external lighting very often. But they lit the bridge always looked like it was the lights from the displays or whatnot were lighting up the set. And I got that out of this movie. It looked close. And another thing they changed the uniforms very slightly. They have this high collar now, very reminiscent of Next Generation's collars, actually. And they got rid of the pattern on the shirts.
Right, there's no more of that webbing look to it.
You know what the webbing was? That webbing design was nothing more than a pattern of the Starfleet chevron. It was the badge repeated over and over and over again as a pattern, which never worked for me. But it amazes me to this day that they had the guts to basically put the old TV show T-shirt and slacks uniform on the big screen, and then B, that they actually made it look good and got away with it. Just saying.
Miracles do happen.
We do wind up with another ship in this movie, and we wind up spending most of the time on an alien planet.
Because they destroy something important.
Oh yeah, the Enterprise goes boom.
You said we were going to cut down on
It's
spoilers.
in the trailers. The Enterprise went boom, and it went boom spectacularly. But
it was pretty. I was impressed.
And for the record, and this is where I will make my note to the third dumbass that had a hand in the script to Into Darkness. If you're going to homage a movie in a series, you do it like this. In Star Trek 3, they blow up the Enterprise. This is the third of the new Star Trek movies. They blow up the Enterprise. But in a different way, at a different point in the movie, and brutally. I mean, it sets the tone for this movie very quick.
I was expecting them to kill more people than they did. There weren't enough red shirts.
Well, you know what actually scared me at one point? Spock wound up wearing red about halfway through the movie.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So they have a tendency to put characters you love in red shirts in these movies.
I know, it's kind of fun.
But
I don't mind a red shirt. I'm counting on those red shirts.
That's why she watches the movies. But
shirts rock.
The destruction of the Enterprise, we actually get to see, quote unquote, the original Enterprise do something that it was always supposed to be able to do. Even in the original series, we get to see the Enterprise perform a saucer separation, which we don't see in the original shows until Next Generation. But originally in the original series, that was something the Enterprise was always supposed to be able to do. The idea was that the saucer would separate and land on the planet for the away team missions, then it would take back off and meet up with the Star Drive section in space and go on its merry way. And when they figured out how much money it was going to cost to do that, they invented the transporter. But I thought it was very cool to get to see that.
But the difficulty that they made trying to get there. I mean, there was a huge action sequence just so you could separate it.
And to me, it does, to a certain point, make sense that it would be laborious and difficult and very manual, hands-on to do it, because...
Which is why they don't do it.
Which is why they didn't do it in the original series.
It takes one person, and one person will always get left behind. and it you know, at first I thought they were killing off someone else that I was definitely not expecting.
Yeah, the only person in the movies franchise that gets killed off, quote unquote, in this film is Spock Prime, Ambassador Spock.
But that was because he was already dead.
That's because Leonard Nimoy passed away between the production of Into Darkness and Beyond. And I will say this, the theme of the movie, if there's anything, I think, is change.
And change sucks.
Well, you wind up with Kirk applying to the Admiralty. That's his backstory. Part of his motivation is he's planning to leave the Enterprise. He's planning to try and become an admiral aboard Yorktown Station.
To stay put.
Yeah.
Set roots.
Yes. Whereas Spock, because Ambassador Spock has passed away, wants to finish the work Ambassador Spock started, and he intends to retire from Starfleet and
go back home.
Go home or go to New Vulcan and become a diplomat, much like Ambassador Spock did. And so it's this theme of change between these characters, and not quite willing to tell each other what the change that they're looking at is coming.
They keep pussyfooting around the subject, not wanting to tell one or the other what's going on.
And it leads to basically the idea is this was the step these characters would have taken in the original universe. Kirk became an admiral. Spock became an ambassador. These are where these characters ultimately went. And the theme of change comes in with Idris Elba's character, our villain for the piece.
Who keeps changing.
But it was change that pushed him in this direction, that went from being a military captain to
an alien race.
Well, no, a civilian captain, an explorer, which is what he was never supposed to be.
And then he becomes an alien.
Yes,
there was no point in Idris Elba being. I mean,
it didn't bother me.
It bugged the shit out of me.
It didn't bother me.
I could tell it was his voice, but the fact that I couldn't tell who it was under all the prosthetics and such, it kind of bugged me.
They started dialing him back over the course of the movie.
Yes,
though,
but that's because he kept killing people off to become more human looking. Like, but even towards the end, I was kind of like, they could have had anybody do that.
I don't think you could have had anybody do it, and the reason I say that is because one is his performance at the end.
Yes.
But I don't know how many actors I could have bought delivering the captain's logs that we see.
No. I'm not talking about the captain's log. I'm talking about the person under the prosthetics. For me, it was kind of almost... It wasn't that it was necessarily a waste of an actor. But for me, the amount of prosthetics that covered him up, yes, he did a very good job of acting through it. Mm-hmm. And that is always very important. Not every actor can do that. But at some point, you kind of got to go, okay, they got this big, again, they got another relatively big name person to play this villain, and you can't even tell it's him.
It didn't bother me.
It
genuinely didn't bother me.
It bugged me so much.
Now, here's the Trekkie in me coming out again. Only one thing actually bothered me in the movie, but I will also give my fan theory on how it worked. We get to see a new ship. We get to see the USS Franklin. Or, more accurately, the USS Franklin. Because in the movie, they do show the dedication plaque briefly. It's 2 words, Franklin. Justin Lin, the director, named the ship for his father. So the USS Franklin they never tell us what class ship it is. It visually looks very close to the NX-01 Enterprise from the series of the same name. They make note that it was the first Warp 4 vessel in Starfleet. But it is constructed well after the NX-01 was. So, how in the world is this the first Warp 4 vessel? And that's hypothetical because I say that because the registry number is NX 900 and something, whereas NX 01 makes sense that one came first. How is this the first Warp 4 vessel when the Enterprise was the first Warp 5 vessel? Fan theory, because she's not going to care. I can see from the reflection in the monitor, she just really doesn't care how much she's tuning out. She's looking at me with that face of...
Doesn't care.
From Star Trek, the original series, to Next Generation, they explained that in TNG, the fastest any ship can go is Warp 10. But in the original series, they hit like Warp 15 on numerous occasions. They explained it away by saying that between the two eras, the scale for warp speed changed. That they modified the scale and made 10 where it topped out. The only constant being that Warp 1 is the speed of light. Well, if you change the warp scale from Enterprise to the movies, it makes sense. So that's what I'm figuring happened. Chances are Warp 5 from Enterprise is probably like Warp 3 in the original series, or something like that. Kind of like changing the speed limit on the interstate. But I liked the design of the ship. There is a part of me that just wishes they had made it one of the NX class ships. It would have been cool. But there are a lot of winks and nods. We get a reference to the Makos, which was actually something I thought you liked about Enterprise.
I picked it out. I picked it out.
Yeah, she actually noticed
I'm not
it.
a Trekkie. I picked out a reference.
Another thing in the movie that I did appreciate. Very controversial. There were a lot of people who were hot one way or the other. Sulu's gay in the movie. Hikaru Sulu is a homosexual. Done in large part because George Takei, the actor who originally played Sulu, is a homosexual, and they wanted to do it as partially as a tribute, but partially to raise awareness.
I thought they did very tastefully.
So did I. George Takei himself couldn't stand it.
Well, and that's his right as someone who has played that character. I've seen many actors and actresses who would never do something to change how a role has been portrayed before because they did not want to be ostracized. You know, so, I mean, it happens, but I think the way they did it was tasteful. I mean, even people who are totally against gays, lesbians, transgender, if they really didn't know the backstory, you would have never been able to know.
Yeah,
it was that tastefully done.
As I have said before, talking about other subjects, and other times that this kind of thing has been done, for instance, in DC Comics, when they did the New 52, Alan Scott, who is my favorite superhero of all time, the original Green Lantern, they made him homosexual in the New 52. And one of the things that I always said is, as long as they don't beat you over the head with a stick, I'm fine with it. And in this case, in both cases, but Alan Scott's another discussion another day, and not this show. They didn't beat you over the head with it.
Right.
It was literally the only moment you get that says that he's homosexual is there is a man and a little girl, and he goes up and he embraces the man lovingly, and he takes this little girl in his arms. We assume the little girl is Demora Sulu, Hikaru Sulu's daughter from Star Trek Generations. They never give you her name, but I'm just going to assume that's who it is.
Yeah, but with the way they did it, I mean, as far as you know, that's his brother.
Yeah.
Or, you know, a cousin. Or, you know, that literally, there are so many ways that you can interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't beat you over the head with it. I appreciate it.
Yes.
You know what my favorite part of the whole movie was, though?
What's that?
It was when Spock says that he gave Uhura a piece of radioactive jewelry that they could literally track. He put a tracker on his girlfriend. I loved it. I laughed hard. It was funny.
There's a lot of ha-ha in this movie.
There was, but that's because Simon Pegg helped write it.
It is, but again, it brings me back to the lightheartedness of certain original series episodes. The original series had a lot of very lighthearted episodes, very fun episodes. They even reference it with a musical cue at one point in the movie. typically the only musical cue you get from the original Star Trek shows in the features is the theme song. So for these movies, generally the only thing you get is dun 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 dun. You get the beginning of the Star Trek fanfare. But no, they used one of sort of the relaxed, fun, jaunty musical cues from the original series out of nowhere. It happened in the movie. I was like, oh, I know that. I know that tune. And of course, the movie ends in a dazzling action sequence. There were a lot of them. Justin Lin's notable for the Fast and the Furious movies. The battle on the alien planet, in an attempt to stop Idris Elba's evil plan, was a wonderful action scene. I don't think there was a bad action sequence in the movie. The action on Yorktown Station with the goofy gravity and the strange...
it was unnecessary.
I don't know if it was unnecessary. It was very different.
I swear I've seen something like that before.
I've never seen that before in a movie. Now, it probably has happened, but I've never seen it. And it made sense for Star Trek in a weird way. That you would have this weird, strange fight in this kind of environment. And of course, I chuckled a little bit. It was another reference to Star Trek lore. There's another Constitution-class starship being built at Yorktown Station.
So guess what's going to become the new Enterprise?
And it becomes NCC 1701A Starship Enterprise, which was the movie Enterprise. We didn't see it show up in the original run until Star Trek 4. But there it is, with Kirk and Spock deciding that their best place is to remain aboard the Enterprise as captain and first officer. The reason I chuckled and thought it was hilarious was because in the original movie they never say it, but the ship that becomes the Enterprise A is originally the USS Yorktown. They rechristen it to make it the Enterprise and give it to Captain Kirk. So there were a number of little winks and nods. All in all, very fun movie. Lots of great character moments. The soundtrack was awesome. The story is there, but as is becoming kind of the norm, I think, for these Star Trek movies, the story is... The actual plot of the movie plays second fiddle to the characters, which isn't necessarily bad, but isn't necessarily good. I would like to actually have a story in one of them. Maybe their Star Trek 4 will get a story to go along with everything else. Your final thoughts. Big likes and big dislikes. We know what two of them are. Nolan's Flair and Idris Elba.
Yeah, pretty much. And I love Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg rocks.
He is kind of awesome. He did a good job writing this movie.
And I appreciated that. I thought it was a very good movie. Oh, you know what I really loved? I loved the beginning with the aliens that kind of look like that kind of look like Sweet Pea on crack.
Now, y'all have never seen Sweet Pea on our shows.
She's a fluffy Maine Coon cat that has a vicious streak. We call her Satan sometimes. Anyway.
She's also camera shy, so we may never see her on any of our shows, and that's okay.
Maybe one day. Anyways, but I love how perspective-wise you think these things are ginormous. And then it gets there, and you're kind of like, oh, it's so cute. I want one. Can I get one?
No.
One. I just want one.
Yeah, but we don't have the CG budget. I think that was part of Simon Pegg's sense of humor coming through. But, the funny thing is, and I'm appreciating this with these new movies, we didn't get it in the first one, because it was the first... Well, actually, I guess we sort of did, but we didn't. The new Star Trek movies kind of have almost like James Bond-ish pre-credit sequences to them now, which I think is pretty interesting. And with Into Darkness, it was one of my favorite parts of Into Darkness, and with this, it's basically the crew wrapping up a mission. It's the end of the away team mission, or it's them on this diplomatic trip.
And really, it gives you why they end up getting attacked anyways.
Right. In this case, it does. In Into Darkness, it provides theme more than anything else. This, it actually provides the MacGuffin. But I find it very interesting that they're using that structure, and I really dig it. I think it's pretty cool to see the crew on a mission wrapping up before they move on to the next. So I really enjoyed that.
They're cuter than tribbles, and they wear shirts.
I don't think they're cuter than tribbles.
I think they're cuter than tribbles because they just look like they are like the little dogs that think they are ginormous.
But all little dogs think they're ginormous.
That's my point, baby.
Anyway,
but they talk.
My closing thoughts on the movie. Better than Into Darkness. Probably better than the 2009 entry. Easily, in my opinion, one of the top 5 Star Trek movies ever made, and it might be my number 3 now. The Wrath of Khan is the gold standard. First Contact is a close number 2. This might be number 3 now. I'm not sure. But it's very good. Don't come for the plot. Don't come for the story. Come for the action. And come because it's a fun movie. Mm-hmm. We left one other thing out. Badass chick in this movie. And I don't remember her name. But since we're not recording on my phone, I can actually look these things up. Was it Genera? Or something like that? Anyway, she actually turned into a very interesting character in the film.
I liked her.
Yeah, and I almost think at this point we would be remiss if we did not point out that Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the new movies, passed away during production of Star Trek Beyond, which I thought they did. I think they handled it very classy in the film. He actually completed all of his scenes, at least that we know of. He was not cut from the movie. They did not kill him off in the movie,
which I was kind of surprised. I was expecting them to do something like that to kind of resolve.
Jayla. That's it. Played by Sofia Boutella. I think I kind of could see her becoming a member of the Enterprise crew. They do send her to the Academy at the end of the movie. I could see her becoming a member of the crew for the next feature. And I feel like they almost set her up for that role. I don't know if that was a decision before or after what happened to Yelchin. The untimely death of Anton Yelchin. This movie actually ran into something that no Star Trek movie has run into before or after, and that is the loss of 2 cast members, either prior to or in the midst of production. I thought the way they handled Nimoy's passing, which was a plot device in the movie, ultimately, was done with great class. Mm-hmm. It is literally nothing more than someone coming up and delivering a package to Commander Spock, Zach Quinto's character, which is essentially Ambassador Spock's obituary, saying that he has passed on, and Ambassador Spock left his belongings to his younger self. So I thought that was very classy. Them keeping Yelchin in the movie all the way through and not killing off Chekhov. And there were a couple of points in the movie I thought they were going to.
I swear, I thought they were going to just kill him off and that would resolve everything on what they would do for the next movie. And they didn't. And
they didn't. And as I understand it, the official stance at this point is, because they've been asked what are they going to do with Chekhov going forward, the official stance is that Ensign Chekhov has been promoted and transferred, and somewhere out there in the Star Trek universe, Pavel Chekhov is serving with distinction and dignity and honor, and we will never see that character again in the new movies, but they're not killing him off, and they're not recasting him. Anton Yelchin will forever be the new incarnation of Pavel Chekhov. But one other thing that was a very nice touch, and it'll be my final closing thought on the movie, when trying to figure out, is this where I belong? Is this what I was meant to do? Am I supposed to go on and move on? We see Mr. Spock going through the ambassador's belongings, and one of the things he comes across is a photo. Now, the photo he comes across is the cast photo from the end of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. At least I think it's from 6. It's either 6 or 5. I don't remember which. But it's the cast photo. And he sees Kirk and Spock together side by side, even in their older age. And that's part of what convinces him to stay. I was wholly expecting them to CG most of the characters in that picture so that it looked like older versions of the new actors, with the exception of Nimoy. And instead, it was DeForest Kelley and James Doohan and George Takei and Nichelle Nichols and William Shatner. It was the original actors. It was the original cast, as if basically to say, no, this is still the Star Trek universe. It's still these guys. And I thought that was also very classy, because it's the only way you're ever going to see the old cast and the new together in one film.
Right.
With
especially considering the fact that the majority of them have passed on.
Yeah, Nimoy, James Doohan, DeForest Kelley have all passed. Nichelle Nichols, Walter Koenig, William Shatner, and George Takei are all still with us. But
right.
the other 3 have all passed. So I was very impressed with that. So my final thoughts and my score. Cell phone down. It's Star Trek Beyond, and it was awesome. And for a while, and I don't know that it's ever happened, at one point, the #1 movie in America was Star Trek. Never thought I would see that happen in my lifetime.
And you did, baby.
Yes, I did.
Miracles do happen.
Yes, they do.
Geeks will inherit the earth.
Your final thought?
It was a good movie. Cell phones down. I was kind of shocked that it was #1 in the country, but for a completely different reason. But it was good. Definitely a good movie.
So, good flick. Miracles do happen. Geeks will inherit the earth. And next week, we will see that more often than not, miracles don't happen. Spoilers. Next week, we're talking about Ghostbusters.
Do we have to?
Well, we paid money to see it, sweetie.
No, I consider the money that we paid was for Star Trek.
Okay, let me rephrase that. I shot an opening for it, and I'm not letting it go to waste.
It was so bad.
We will talk about that one next week. There were better. But previews of what's to come. We're going to be talking about Ghostbusters next week. The week after that, we will be talking about Batman vs. Superman, the Ultimate Edition, the Blu-ray specifically. Neither one of us have seen the theatrical release, but we're going to watch the Blu-ray. I've heard it's better. And as of we're recording this on a Monday night. We received word, and we're going to go ahead and put it out there because this will air in a couple of days. The great comedic actor Gene Wilder has passed away. Gene Wilder, known for numerous Mel Brooks movies, perhaps best known as Willy Wonka from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the comedic partner of Richard Pryor in a number of movies, one of the great all-time comedy duos. We are going to watch a flick on this show in tribute to him. So after Batman v Superman in a few weeks, we are going to be checking out Blazing Saddles here on Cana and Mike's Movie Night. So that is in the coming weeks here on the show. Please don't forget to check out all the other great shows here on the ECS network. Denzi Caster, Rage Quit Radio. The Announcer's Booth is finally back, and we're doing stuff. It's in audio format, but it is here on the channel. So check all of that great stuff out. Also, don't forget, we have merchandise now that we are plugging on the shows as we can. Go check it out. It's cafepress.com/ECS Network. There's not a Cana and Mike's Movie Night shirt up there yet, but there will be soon. I'm working on one. And something that I do not do often, and I will not do often on this channel, simply because it's not why we're here. We're here to entertain and have fun and be geeky. But and I have not told my wife that we're doing this. On the subject of Cafe Press, one of the things that my wife and I are doing personally is we are working towards an adoption. We are working towards expanding our family. And one of the other things, while you're at Cafe Press, do us a favor. We're trying to raise some money for that adoption. Not a cheap process. You can help us out a little bit out. Go to cafepress.com/thebrownsadopt if you get a chance. And if you feel up to it, grab one of those shirts too. I designed all of them. Who knows, the Cana and Mike's Movie Night shirts might wind up in both places for a while in case you want to pick one up. Anything you buy from the Browns Adopt goes specifically to our adoption fund. Anything you pick up from the ECS Network store, that goes to getting us new equipment and helping us do cool new things here on the ECS Network. So there you go. Until next week, when we will, unfortunately, review... who are you going to call? I'm Mike.
Not that.
I'm Mike.
I'm Cana.
And we'll see you next week on Cana and Mike's Movie Night. Who are you going to call?
Not them.
In the words of Will Smith, not the GBs. Just saying. See you next. Oh, and Suicide Squad. We're going to do that one too.
Suicide Squad too.
Not next week. See you later.